Thank you for tuning into Cytology 101. I'm your host, Sydney Robinson. We'll get into the challenges of the dental industry, empower leaders to inspire their teams, and foster collaboration between office team members and practice owners. Together, we'll find creative solutions to get shit done. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Cytology 101, your go-to podcast for dental team members and dental leaders looking to transform their practices. So we are in for a treat because we are about to take a listen to part 2 of KPI Simplified. They're just numbers, not nightmares. So as you all know from part 1, we originally recorded this lecture at our office manager workshop in San Diego. And this workshop is more for office managers, regional lead assistants, and doctors who everybody wanted to take a look at their numbers. They really want to understand their numbers, but they have no idea where to start. So this was a really great workshop for that. What was really cool about this is that we had a ton of team members. I had hygienists there, which I thought was super lovely because we got to hear different perspectives when we broke out into groups. So if you did miss that workshop, here is a full breakdown of what we talked about. So just to kind of recap part 2, or what you'll get out of part 2, we broke down how missed calls are secretly wrecking your new patient goals, how to use tools like Mango and Flex to stop essentially leaving money on the table, and why walkout errors are not just annoying, they're expensive. I mean, how many times do you have to go in and correct a claim or refund money? So we really talked about cleaning those up. And we talked about our overhead financial benchmarks and how to talk about numbers as a team where it doesn't seem so icky. So I hope that you guys are ready for this episode, which is packed with real talk, coaching advice, and practical strategies to help you take ownership of your numbers and finally get your team and your doctors aligned around data that drives results. We really want to make sure that we're winning. So I understand numbers can be scary, but y'all, it's not. They're just numbers. So plug in, grab your coffee or your cocktail, y'all know, no judgment, and let's GSD. Next up, we have the new patient matrix. New patient calls conversions, missed call percentage, number of days next available new patient appointment. Those should be discussed monthly with your team. How many of you all track your patient calls? How many of you know how many you're missing? How many of you know the number of new patients? Okay. How many of you have your doctor saying we need to get more new patients? How many of your doctor says, are we picking up all the phone calls? So then my next question is, someone had a real unreasonable one. I respect it, but it was somewhat unreasonable. But 100% of the calls, right? 95%? What does Michael say? Because Michael told me he told me 92, I think it was. And I was like, Michael, that is unreasonable. But I do agree with the 80. I do agree with the 80% of the phone calls definitely should get captured. But how many of you guys use Mango or Flex? So if you do miss those calls, how many of your patients get a text message that says, hey, we're so sorry we missed your call. How can I help you today? Is it, hey, how can we help you today at the end of it? Perfect, that way they know to text you back. If you guys do not use Flex, Mango, or some type of mass communication where you can do that, for that office who needs to be 90%, for the Michaels of the world who wants to be 80 to 90% as well, you may miss those calls, but if you don't have something to pick that call up, you're gonna end up paying phone tag with your patients. Patients are more likely to text you back. I had another office I was working with. They're now paying phone tag and they've given up because the patient's at work. So if you do that and you notice that no one's engaging, maybe make some small tweaks to your verbiage. Doctor wants them to do 100% of the phone calls, pick up 100% of the phone calls, and if they don't pick it up, right, he picks it up. They also have to keep track of how many calls they're answering and all the people that they're talking to by hand. And they're not able to do any type of automatic text or phone calls because he feels like that's impersonal. So maybe it's one of those, it's just like with our patients, right? It could be one of those educational parts where maybe he doesn't understand, like again, with Flex, how these ladies were saying, hey, this is Sydney. So you can have an automatic thing that goes out and you can say it's a person. So sorry we missed your call today. How can I help you? Everybody, this is a new generation. People don't actually like talking to people nowadays. They rather text. If you looked at my voicemail, my husband goes, that is out of control. Or you look at my email now too, out of control. My personal one, my professional one, Lord help us all. But people will text back. And so maybe it's just give him some stats. If he may be, hey, this is what it is. I also found out that we can actually personalize our text message. Maybe not the auto calls or whatnot, but we can personalize our text message. And then with Flex, it pops up on your dashboard, on your computer, and you can just easily text them back as yourself. Oh yeah, we were calling so that we can collect payment, or we were calling so that we could get you scheduled for your next appointment. So maybe it's also giving him some stats.
I don't know if maybe the Mango person will know. I've never looked this up before, so I'm looking up on our Mango. It says 21% is unknown. Do we know what that, does anyone know what that means?
21 for Mango, 21% unknown. Isn't that just the number, or they don't know what the caller is?
It says 50% answered, 26% voicemail, 21% unknown.
Okay, and are you in the admin dashboard looking at your?
Yeah.
Okay, let me look into that really quick and we'll get you a.
Okay. Okay. Also, Mango has the AI now. So because I can't wait till that comes out. So the offices that I work with, what we're doing is we're just using the AI to go in and find, if they say new patient or welcome, we can search those words. And now we can go and we can count it. I know that's a little bit tedious, but right now, if you do have Mango and you have the AI part of it, you can actually go in and you can look that up by using that transcript. And then, girl, let me tell you about ChatGPT. You can take that transcript, you can download it, and you can actually tell ChatGPT to total up the numbers for you. I gotcha. Yep. Okay. Ooh, I better keep going. Sorry. We're getting to some good stuff here, y'all. Okay, so new patient calls, missed calls. What this is going to tell you, though, is what is your call volume? What are you putting on the schedule? Because we can talk about production all day, but if you're not getting any calls, what's happening? So if you're not tracking that, that is going to be one of the key indicators that we're going to recommend that you do. Also, new patients. It's going to be important that you have that new patient goal and finding out how many new patients you will need on your schedule, how many are actually calling your office, because if we're just going to magically think that they're going to show up, maybe now, instead of putting efforts into patient referrals or something like that, maybe we need to look at marketing. Maybe there's something happening. I know one office wasn't tracking this, and come to find out, SEO was turned off, so they weren't getting any traffic to their website. But we wouldn't have caught that if we weren't looking at that new patient number. All right, gonna keep going here. So then we have our walkout errors. Where's my office? That was a problem. We would need to track that. We need to look at how many errors is happening. Why? If I don't charge something out or walk a patient out correctly, what happens? Anybody? You got to chase it later, or maybe you submitted the wrong code, and now you got to do a whole insurance adjustment, or you now have to go in and you have to work harder on the billing side. So we definitely should be tracking our walkout errors. These are training opportunities and opportunities to create systems. Maybe someone just didn't know if you click this button. I had an office where she was just setting her appointments complete. The office manager was like, you need to set these complete. I asked her, I said, did you have her walk you through the process? And she goes, she should know. Ooh, girl, that's a you problem then, because that is not how this goes. As much as I probably would have said that, old Sydney would have said that too. No, it's not she should know, because clearly she's been making this mistake for a month and you're so upset by it. But did you put anything into figuring out why? Other than you need to charge it out. So I asked her to walk her through the process. What she was doing was she was setting it complete from the calendar. But if something changed, or they did fluoride, or they didn't do a buildup and that was on the schedule, then it would get charged out. Or if they did something new, that didn't get charged out. Does that make sense? So it was a simple fix.
if you're going to set it complete from the appointment module, make sure you add in all the treatment that was done. But we would recommend to set it complete here from what you entered, because now everything's going to be set complete. Make sense? So it's just walk me through your process. Try to find out what's happening, why you're having these checkout errors, and then train them on it. You can't just keep going to people saying, oh, you're not doing this right. Okay, how am I supposed to do it? And you can't just go say, I've shown you multiple times. Did you show them your way? Did you actually sit down and see how they're processing this? Everybody learns differently. And again, this isn't just for my leaders. This is my DAs, my treatment coordinators. If your DA is setting something wrong and is driving you insane, peer-to-peer accountability, y'all. I should be able to go to one of my team members and talk to them. If you're not able to have a healthy conversation, then they should not be on your squad. I should be able to communicate that. I don't have to go to my office manager. That is not her problem or his problem. That's a you problem, because it affects your job and what you're doing. The doctor isn't going to come to the DA and say, why is our collections down? Right? They're going to go to you. Collections is down is because you have these walkout errors and now you're trying to chase money. So have a conversation and don't have someone, let me go to my doctor. Doctors, I'm pretty sure you guys get this a lot. Let me go to the doctor and find out what the doctor wants to do. You know what to do, right? Don't we all? And I know we have some psychos in our office. I've been talking to a lot of y'all. Y'all like, girl, shut up. This is not gonna work. I had some conversations with a lot of y'all in here, and I know, trust me, I know, but as long as we're controlling what we can control, that's all that matters. And if that person reacts negatively, is that your fault? No. Then that's when you go to your office manager. Hey, I talked to Sydney about setting the appointments incorrectly. She got really upset. Is there something you can do to help with this? That's when I would want to escalate it up to my manager or my doctor, because that means that something's happening between that team member and we just need to correct that. That goes against our core values. We believe in peer-to-peer accountability. Someone's telling me, hey, you shouldn't come to me. It's not your job to do it. You don't belong on my squad. Okay? We have the incomplete notes. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. For my billers, I know y'all are like, yes, please do your notes. But if you're not tracking this and you just telling people you didn't do your notes and they're not seeing the actual number, they're just thinking that you're complaining. Okay, so track that. Number of new patient blocks filled with new patient. The cost per new patient is how much does it cost you to get a new patient into the office. Now that is more of a leadership one, and we do like to discuss that as we go through our leadership meetings, but how much is it costing us per new patient to see that patient and to get that new patient into the office? Revenue and growth tracking, we want to track our revenue per provider, which we touched on already. Our patients referring a new patient percentage. How many of you guys actually track that? Oh, I love that. You're so happy about it too. I love it. I do recommend tracking that number for our leaders as you guys are making informed decisions. It's going to go back to, do we need to do more marketing on our front end, or we are seeing a lot of patients refer us. Maybe we should implement a referral program. Maybe we should do some type of raffle, show our appreciation to our patients. So that's why I like to look at that number. And then we have our total treatment presented. We already talked about that. Implants. This is getting really defined. If you're trying to, if a surgical center, you're trying to start to implement implants or something like that, let's start tracking that number to see how we're doing. If you want to start doing something and you're not tracking it, how do you know you're successful? I have a lot of offices that are now implementing laser. Every single patient is going to be diagnosed with laser. Let's count how many we're seeing, and maybe we need to make tweaks to what's happening. Maybe we need to make tweaks to our verbiage, something. But if we're doing great, then let's keep moving on. But track those numbers, such as implants, perio treatment, crowns presented, sealants. If you're doing aligners or anything like that, track those numbers so you can see what's working in your office. Because if you know what's working, then we don't need to focus on it. But the things that aren't working is where we should lay our focus. And then I always like to tell people, focus on it for the next 30 days. This is what we're going to do. Don't try to put out so many fires all at once. Okay, other matrix to watch is your lead conversions, your open hygiene time over 2 weeks. So we already talked about that too. How much time do you have on your schedule? I know I have a lot of offices that are at a capacity issue right now, so yeah, good luck with that one. Limited exams converted to comprehension exams. How many of you guys actually track that? Oh, that makes me sad. Please track that number. Because if you're seeing a lot of limited exams and you're getting emergencies in there, you guys have to, that's opportunity to convert, right? Yeah, you got to keep them. That's how you're going to grow your patient base. That's how you're going to add to production collection. That's how you guys are going to get to go to Cabo. Yeah, you can tell what's our incentive. I'm going to Cabo in October. I'm like, yes. New patient flow as well is something that you want to make sure that you're tracking. So when we're looking at our KPIs and our expenses, we want to really understand our fixed and variable expenses. I know we want to keep track of KPIs. We want to look at these numbers so that we know how we're growing. But another thing for our office managers and our leaders in the office is to understand expenses. There is a fixed and variable expense. Fixed expenses are costs that do not change regardless of how much business operates. These costs remain the same every month, making them predictable and easier to budget for. Those would be your facility equipment, your rent, and your mortgage, and your payroll. That's what your fixed expenses are. So essentially, those are things that will not change, and you're going to have to pay those. Variable expenses. These are expenses essentially that changes. These costs increase as the practice ramps up its operations and decrease when activity is lower. So, hygienists in the room, you want those fancy Cabochon tips. If production collection is low, we can't get those fancy, oh, I only have one hygienist in here, don't I? Sorry. We're friends now, I think, so I can say it. But that's what we want to look at here. And then that's our low-hanging fruit. So we want to look at lab expenses, supplies, marketing. Those are things that we can control to decrease our overhead expenses. So how much are you spending on lab? All of you guys said your DSN. Are you using the Synergy discount where we can decrease those expenses? One of my offices, 15% by using those DSN discounts. It was out of control when I went through those expenses with the lead assistant. Their lab costs, they were spending so much on lab. Now I know that's a touchy subject for our doctors because we do have our favorite labs. However, there's certain things like maybe for the aesthetics or the molars, I have some offices that are like, we can send that over to Maverick or Next Level. Supply cost. How can we decrease those supply costs? We're not saying that we want to get rid of things. We're just saying maybe we can go to Amazon and we can order them from Amazon. Those are your variable expenses that you can change, and what that will do is help you decrease your overhead expenses. Overhead and cash flow. Understanding your office cash flow and overhead expenses allow you to understand the ongoing costs required to run your practice, such as rent, utilities, salaries, and supplies. Knowing these costs help you identify where you might be spending too much. Reducing overhead could directly increase your practice profitability. As a leader in the practice, this will help you in budgeting and forecast future financial needs. It allows you to plan for big expenses like equipment, expansion, salaries, and increasing in hiring. So, all of my OMs in the room, how many of you do any type of leadership meeting with your doctors and you talk about your overhead and cash flow? All of y'all are my favorite people. How many OMs in the room don't do this? How many of you think that your doctor would be open to having these discussions with you? Okay. Take advantage of it. It's only going to help you do your job, but also it's going to help support your practice owners. Now they're not in this alone, where they're sitting in their office and they're trying to figure this out. That's your opportunity to go in and say, I was looking at how much we're paying for a crown, and then I saw that on DSN, we can pay $79 or $89. We're paying $216. Would you like for me to look into this? Because I'm thinking we can probably decrease some expenses. Do you know the type of giggity expression your practice owners would give you if you walked in with a conversation like that? You just spoke my whole love language, girlfriend. Please do it. But have those conversations. If you feel like your doctor is open, or maybe you don't know, so if you are a leader in the practice and you didn't raise your hand, simply ask. Take a calculated risk. But I do recommend, for the ones who did not raise their hand, having these type of meetings with your doctors. This is only going to help support you and help support your team members. Okay? Really quickly, we have our supply. These are our benchmarks. So supplies makes up about 5 to ideally 4.5. And these are your overhead expenses, by the way. So it makes up about 5%, lab 9, ideally 7. Combined supplies with labs. So I have those bigger offices like my implant back here, or those offices that do ortho or anything like that. And you're like, okay, how do I figure this out? Because I do those big cases, you can combine those and that'll be about a 14, ideally 11.5. Marketing 4.5, office expense 1.2, other expenses 5.5, ideally 4.5. Merchant fees, patient refunds, and continuing education are those other miscellaneous things that you'll want to track with your overhead.
Do you talk to an accountant? Because my accountant does cash flow sheets and stuff like that. Do you try and get the accountant on board with breaking it down in these specific categories?
Yes, that's that sheet that I can share because yes, your accountant would break those down, but it depends on how you're categorizing those on your P&Ls.
Yeah.
So you'll want to make sure that those certain expenses are going to the right category. We have lovely CPAs, but a lot of them don't really work with dentists. And so when you give them that list, it'll help break that down a little bit more so that you can actually see where everything's going, where all the money's going.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, last thing is, this is our supply budget tracker. And in our supply budget tracker, if you look here, it says month 1, month 2, collections. So if we are collecting, then that means what? So 4.5% of what we're collecting can go towards our supply expenses. So for my hygienist who wants that fancy Capuchon tip, as long as we are collecting, then we could potentially cover that for them. So we have a really great tracker here, and it's super easy to use. I know some people, if you use, Method is a really good one. That's through Synergy, where you can actually track these. But you plug those in, and it just lets you know how much you have.
I had a question about patient refunds.
Yep.
We seem to have a high amount of credit on accounts. And we try to write some checks monthly, but how do you even recommend to handle that? And then also, when we're looking at our true net collections for the month, are we taking into account the patient refunds that we've also given out?
1%, 1 to 2% of what you're collecting, you can allocate towards your patient refunds.
Okay.
I like to look at that on a monthly basis. I also like to figure out why we have a lot of patient refunds. So if you're seeing that you have high patient refunds, are you fee for service?
No, almost there.
Almost there, okay. I do see that a lot in our fee-for-service practice where they have high credits because they're over-collecting for patients. So if you find that you have a lot, then we want to get to the root of that problem and take a look. So it could be insurance. Maybe we're expecting a little bit more from insurance or a little bit less. The patient paid a little bit more and now you have to refund them back. That's the trending one. Would you say, Brittany? About right.
So then when you're trying to figure out your net collections for the month, are you're counting the refunds that you've given, right?
Yeah, you can, 1 to 2% you'll subtract from that net collection. Yeah. Yep. Great question. I hope that was fun. I hope that was good and it made sense why we had that on your breakout group. If anybody is still confused, I know a lot of people came to me and said, I don't know how to pull these numbers. And I love that you came to me and said you don't know how to pull those numbers. If you don't and you didn't come to me, Brittany, or Kendall, please come to us and let us help you with that. Now, if you are a Dentrix or EagleSoft user, good luck. But we can ChatGPT it or we can go to Google. We will figure it out for you, okay? We will find the answer. I did find out some of those softwares don't pull these numbers. I think some of them, like EagleSoft, didn't pull one of the reports that we actually would recommend. So that's why I like the practice analytics. Let's try to look at softwares that integrate with those to help make it easier. These ladies here tracking each phone call, writing it down on a spreadsheet. Do we think that's a good use of their time? No. Or could they actually be calling unscheduled treatment? Could they actually be looking into insurances and looking at their AR? I saw yours too, so there's some things that we could work on. But yes.
For a practice that is considering switching over software, what would be like your tipping point?
There's never a right time to pull the trigger. That's like when you're always gonna put it off because it's just another task that you have to do. To be fair, that's a really great question, and I don't want to say I have the answer for that, but if off the top of my head, it would be, what do you want to get out of that software? Why would you want to switch to that software? What is your current software doing that you wish that it did do, if that makes sense? And would Open Dental or whatever other software solve that problem? So I think that's the best answer I could give. I don't think there's real numbers. It's just going to be about what problems would switching to a new software solve. What is it that they want to get out of that software? And then from there, once you know that answer, if Open Dental can deliver that, then this would solve a lot of our problems. So I think that's how I would address that. Not necessarily numbers. I would just try to address it from what problems would it solve. Thank you, everybody. This is a really great conversation.
This has been another episode of Cetology 101. Today's episode was sponsored by FOA Coaching. If you would like to find out more about team training or personalized coaching, visit foacoaching.com. Also, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Cetology 101. Until next time, friends.